Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, March 9th. A messy day is in store for areas to the north of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. Precipitation will overspread the region over the next hour or two from the southwest to the northeast, likely in the form of a mixture of snow and rain. Sleet can mix into the picture as well at times, and there certainly can be some grassy accumulations in the suburban locations to the north and west of Philly and New York City during the day today. South of the Mason-Dixon line, primarily a rain event. Looks like just a cold rain in and around the D.C. metro region. Now, temperatures are starting off the day in the Philadelphia suburbs, let's say, in the lower 40s, but they'll drop several degrees as soon as the precipitation arrives over the next hour or two, drop into the mid-30s and likely remain there throughout the duration of the day. Now, in some of the higher elevation locations across the suburbs of Philly, New York City metro region, you certainly can see as much as 2 or 3 inches on grassy surfaces. I'm talking about places like western Chester County, upper Bucks County, western Montgomery County, and southeastern Pennsylvania. Certainly interior northwestern New Jersey has some higher elevation locations. Let's take a look now at the radar. And again, cold rain already falling across the D.C. metro region, and precipitation is about to spread to the north of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border and reach the ground. Some of this is not reaching the ground yet, but it will shortly. Likely again in the form of a mixture of snow and rain. And kind of interestingly, when the precipitation comes down a little bit heavier at times, it favors snow and then lightens up, favors rain. And that's because there can be bursts of heavier precipitation today associated with what we call frontogenetic banding. That produces some dynamical cooling in the atmosphere. So anytime the precipitation gets a little bit heavier, it could have a quick changeover from rain to snow. And I'm talking again about across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and southeastern New York. Well, let's walk through last night's operational run of the 0Z GFS model. And here we have some vorticity kind of spread out across the upper Midwest into the northeastern part of the nation. Surface low pressure exists right now over the Tennessee Valley. It will head towards southeastern Virginia and then out over the open waters of the western Atlantic. We also want to talk a little bit about the Arctic frontal passage that will be very active on Saturday and Saturday night, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Here we'll go through the day today. This system pushes pretty quickly to the north and east. Precipitation should wind down by later this afternoon in D.C. and by late afternoon, early evening, Philadelphia, New York City. And then Thursday and Friday look like pretty tranquil days. But here we go. By the time we get to the end of the work week, the beginning of the upcoming weekend, this is the Friday night forecast map of vorticity centers here. We're looking at 2 different areas at this particular time. Quite a healthy looking wave in the northern branch of the jet stream, and a second one down across the southern states in the southern branch of the jet stream. And they tend to coalesce or phase together by the time we get to the day on Saturday. Here we go by Saturday midday. Look at this. This is now quite a bit of a phasing together here of that southern branch and the northern branch. And that will help to form strong and, in fact, rapidly intensifying low pressure along an Arctic frontal boundary zone on Saturday. And will also raise the possibility of some very high winds, especially behind the Arctic frontal passage later Saturday into Saturday night. Now let's move forward here in time. Here we go by Saturday evening. Again, quite a bit of support for this active frontal passage on Saturday and Saturday night. It then moves off the coast by the time we get to Sunday morning, and a very cold day in store on Sunday relative to normal for this time of the year. High temperatures confined to the 30s, the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, and overnight lows could very well drop into the teens in some of those suburban locations to the north and west of the big cities along the Mid-Atlantic I-95 corridor. Well, this is one of the features that we talked about yesterday. This is what we call frontogenesis, or kind of an area of temperature contrast in the mid layers of the atmosphere. early this morning, Wednesday morning. This is the reason why there can be bursts of heavier precipitation. This tends to lead to small scale, or what we call mesoscale, banding of precipitation. Anytime you can have a heavier burst of precipitation over the next several hours north of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, you could have a changeover from rain to snow because there's dynamical cooling going on in the atmosphere associated with that mesoscale banding. So again, this is an area of interest right now. Watch out for bursts of heavier precipitation that could actually produce some accumulating snow in the suburban areas to the north and west of Philly, for example, and into New York City. Over the next few hours, it pushes off to the north and east into the southern part of New England by the middle of the day, and up there also could produce some smaller scale, heavier bands of precipitation. Well, let's take a look at the surface maps from last night's GFS model run. Here's that surface low pressure area over the Tennessee Valley. It quickly will kind of give up its dominance to a system over southeastern Virginia. Let's go forward here, and there we go. It shifts quickly to off the mid-Atlantic coastline by the middle of the day, and notice generally north of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, snow, certainly a mixture of rain and snow in the southeastern part of the state, primarily, if not completely, rain from here on out across the D.C. metro region and in areas to the south of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. With the location of this off the western Atlantic coast, over the western Atlantic waters here, Philly, New York City, on the cold side of the storm, off to the north and west. Just not quite cold enough for any snow in D.C., with temperatures holding around 40 even after the precipitation has begun. Again, temperatures should drop into the 30s over the next hour or so as soon as the precipitation begins in southeastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southeastern New York. Now, let's move forward here. It winds down later in the day into the early evening hours. Again, Thursday, Friday, rather tranquil days, but here we go into the upcoming week, and this is the late Friday night, early Saturday morning forecast map. And here we go. We have an impressive upper level system that we saw a couple of minutes ago will help to spawn the development of strong low pressure. Notice this, 992 millibars right along an Arctic frontal boundary zone. That will intensify rapidly, now down to about 983 millibars by midday on Saturday. Snow on the backside of that frontal system. By the time we get to Saturday evening, a 970 plus low centered over northern New England. So it's a rapidly intensifying low pressure area throughout the day on Saturday. Again, this is the Saturday evening forecast map. And the pressure gradient between this departing strong and still intensifying low pressure area and this strong high pressure system right here, this pressure gradient will be very tight pressure gradient, and you can see the lines of equal pressure represented by these black lines here. Anytime you have a tight pressure gradient and those lines are close together, that is indicative of strong winds, and indeed there will be high winds, post-frontal high winds, perhaps in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range. We're talking later Saturday into Saturday night throughout the Mid-Atlantic region and the northeastern part of the nation. And notice a changeover to snow, not only in interior sections, which is more typical for this kind of a frontal passage, but all the way down into the I-95 corridor region, perhaps even down to the coastal sections of the Delmarva and New Jersey later Saturday night. So again, a very, very active frontal passage coming into the Mid-Atlantic, the northeastern U.S. Saturday night. We'll, of course, focus in on that over the next couple of days after today's messy weather situation. Then we go forward here, and again, very, very high winds expected here between the departing low and this building high in the Mid-Atlantic region, in the northeast U.S. throughout the night on Saturday night going into Sunday morning. By the time we get to Sunday, starts to calm down a little bit. Very strong winds over northern New England on Sunday continue. Temperatures confined to the 30s on Sunday, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, way below normal. But there is a big-time warm-up coming next week, and that can be followed by more cold weather during the following week. So a lot going on, a very active weather pattern for much of the eastern part of the nation. The snow rain mix today north of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, a cold rain south of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, and then a very active frontal passage on Saturday that could have some post-frontal temperature drops with some snow and high winds, a real concern later Saturday night. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.